So most people believe that private equity is the later stage of venture capital. It is not,
Okay.
right? So the difference between venture capital is venture capital funds profit and loss account losses.
Hmm.
So that means it funds burn, as they call it.
Okay.
Whereas private equity, it typically goes into the balance sheet to fund balance sheet items. So a normal private equity funded company will be profitable, will use the money for things like acquisitions,
Hmm.
and not for burn,
Okay.
right? So maybe you could say the difference is organic versus inorganic.
Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged and delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished money manager, if I can use the term, Rehan Yar Khan. Rehan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Rehan,
Thank you, Ashutosh. Great to be here and wonderful work you're doing.
thank you. Rehan is the founder and managing partner of Orios Venture Partners. He has had a string of unicorn investments like Ola Cabs, Dhruva, Farm Easy, Country Delight, etc. And uh, I'm always partial to authors. He's the co-author of a book titled Make Your Own Luck. So, Rehan, let's talk a little bit about Orios. Tell me a little bit
Sure.
about this entity.
So we started Orios in 2014 as a technology venture capital fund for India.
Mhm.
The history to that was, Ashutosh, was that I was a tech founder before that and a tech angel.
Mhm.
And I felt the need for a venture capital fund in India. So I got together with some other folks and put up this fund.
Mhm.
We've so far gone and raised three funds under the Orios banner, and we are just about to hit the road to raise our fourth fund under the banner.
Mhm.
Um, what Orios does is, we invest in tech companies, mostly internet companies, but also things like electric vehicles and high tech. Like Dhruva is a high tech company,
Mhm.
but all tech. So our mission is, in India that runs on technology, because we believe that technology is a game changer, and we want to enable that for the country.
Mhm.
And that is a win-win situation, for the country, for founders, for people who invest in our fund,
Mhm.
and we have a great time doing this. We've all been tech guys, our whole careers. So we understand this deeply. We're
Mhm.
able to assist founders a lot after we invest,
Right.
because we've done this before. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. We invest in all stages, early, mid, and late.
And
So that's us.
before I get further into Orios, for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation, what is the difference between venture capital and private equity?
Ah, yes. Good one. So most people believe that private equity is the later stage of venture capital. It is not,
Mhm. Okay.
right? So the difference between venture capital is venture capital funds profit and loss account losses.
Mhm.
So that means it funds burn, as they call it.
Okay.
Whereas private equity, it typically goes into the balance sheet to fund balance sheet items. So a normal private equity funded company will be profitable, will use the money for things like acquisitions,
Mhm.
and not for burn,
Okay.
right? So maybe you could say the difference is organic versus inorganic,
Right.
also.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
I've never heard this definition, and I'm glad I asked you this question.
right.
So, when you said that you come in at early stage, middle stage, late stage, what are some of the key
Mhm.
metrics you look for before you would consider an investment?
So typically at the early stage, you look for TAM, which is total
Mhm.
addressable market,
Yeah.
right? LTV, which is lifetime value of the business, which just means, fancy word for saying what is the frequency like
Mhm.
of the business, right? So business, which doesn't have high frequency,
Mhm.
is preferable, because you can build a brand, you can amortize your cost of acquisition. So that consideration factor, and I would say the third consideration factor is the team.
Mhm.
A very important consideration factor. Can these guys and girls go ahead and build this, big mega company,
Hmm.
right? So these are the three things we look for in early stages. In middle stages, you look for more validation of these kind of things.
Sure.
And, I suppose the biggest consideration factor at the late stage is price.
Very interesting. So,
Factors at
another
the three
question that is
stages.
often asked by startup entrepreneurs is at what stage should I start looking for external funding? Meaning, how long should I really bootstrap my
Hmm.
startup?
Yeah. So the answer to that is do whatever it takes not to lose momentum
Okay.
and not to lose speed, right? So if you have the money with your own thing and it's taking you a certain distance, but then you think because you don't have funding, so take it as far as you can go, right,
Mm-hmm.
with your own money, because the more value you create with your own money, the less you have to dilute,
Mm.
right? Remember, dilution is permanent. Valuation is temporary, but dilution is permanent,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So take it as far as you can, get the maximum possible value, so you dilute as little as possible,
Mm-hmm.
but then go and take the external funding if your business requires it, and otherwise don't lose momentum. Otherwise, someone else may come and eat your lunch,
Mm.
right? It's a very competitive world out there.
Correct. Correct. Well said. Well said. And another question that is often asked is that as a venture capital investor,
Hmm.
how involved do you get in the governance of the company?
Ashutosh, is that more than governance, and while we do look at all the governance factors, that
Mm-hmm.
board meetings are conducted properly, all regulations are filed, and paid crazy amounts, and weird loans are not being taken, and people are not taking the money and buying Ferraris with it.
Mm-hmm.
While we do look at that, that's a very small part of what we actually do with companies. What we spend the majority of our time, after we invest with companies, is actually helping them build a business,
Okay.
right? That's why I would say 95% of our involvement with the company is around that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very happy to report that, I've been doing this now since 2008, and we've probably been part of 60 plus investments. I have yet to see a governance issue,
Okay.
right? So these new set of entrepreneurs which are coming in India are very clean.
Mm.
There's no hanky panky out there. I mean, we are yet to see a case, right? And we haven't heard of a case, from these people, from our peers in the industry.
Mm.
So governance is not the biggest focus. While we do that, helping build the business is the biggest focus.
Very interesting. And at what stage do you look for an exit?
So exit is a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is that we look for first we look to create value, right? Because you're coming in at a particular stage, you need to compound it, right? And as Warren Buffett has pointed out multiple times, that's the eighth wonder of the world, compounding. So you allow it to compound substantially, and then you do a staggered exit, right? So you don't sort of take all your money out in one chunk.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a little bit out now, then you do a little bit more later, and then a little bit more later. And you may ask the question, hey, but why are you doing that if the company is continuing to grow? So the answer to that is because you can't always time the market,
Correct.
right? The market may, go the other way. So while you're very bullish on it now, so you have this staggered exit plan.
Mm.
And that then becomes more of a process. See, as a fund, what you're always trying to do is try to create replicable and replicatable processes,
Mm.
right? So that's how we do it.
Very interesting. And when I was reading about you, Rehan, you've got several unicorns in your portfolio. My question to you is that, do you want to talk a little bit about the ones that got away and how you
I
felt
knew you were
about
coming
it?
to that. Yeah, so Ashutosh, see, as an early stage investor, what happens is that you're betting on very, very early ideas, right? And on unproven teams, and those kind of situations.
Mm.
And what happens is that you will automatically miss more good companies than get the good ones, because you just don't have a thesis and you're not brave enough, right? And normally all these new ideas are like outlandish ideas. I remember when I'd invested in Ola and I wanted to syndicate the round, right? And I went to my friends and I went to other angel investors and early stage funds that I knew, and people were like super skeptical about the business.
Mm.
And get a cab,
Mm.
right? So what is this thing to order on an app? Pe kaun order karega? Who will order this on an app and wait and all that, right? And this is Bombay, where you can wave your arm and get a cab. So
Mm.
people are skeptical. And similarly, we miss Swiggy, right? Because at that time, there were 2, 3 competitors. There was Zomato, there was a company called Tiny Owl, there was Food Panda. These guys were coming in from behind. Yes, they had a new idea, but we were afraid.
Hmm.
right? We missed Oyo because, when I met with Ritesh, he was 17 years old and he was passed out on a couch. So I said, yeah, how do I invest in this guy, man?
I agree. Very interesting.
And so on and so forth,
Yeah.
right? So it happens, I wrote a whole blog post on it about, 6, 7 of these that we missed.
Uh-huh. Very interesting. Very interesting. So now let me move to a few questions for you on startups. And again, more than 75% of our viewers and listeners are under 34, and a lot of them are startup entrepreneurs.
Okay.
My first question to you, Rehan, is what is the advantage of having a partner versus going solo?
Right. Yeah, I think, Ashutosh, the days of the solo founder are, pretty much over,
Okay.
right? What time and case studies of success
Mm.
have taught us is that you need three kind of people, right, in your founding team. You
Mhm.
need the seller, the deliverer, and the techie,
Okay.
right? So you should put together these three people
Mm.
as part of your initial founding team. And what all the data now is showing is that when you have this combination, your chances of success go up manyfold,
Mhm.
not just from an execution perspective. See, and I mean, you run companies and, you've been part of it. Brainstorming and bouncing off ideas itself is of tremendous value, right?
Correct.
And if I don't have peers and equals and
Mm.
smart people with me, right, in the beginning, how do I do that and how do I refine my idea?
Mm. Mm. Well said.
So, so
Well said.
that's key. Yeah.
And again, now, based again on so many companies you would have invested in and so many you may have not taken up,
Hmm.
what, in your opinion, are some of the basic mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
I think there's this whole thing out there, and I think it's a issue because of our school training is
Mhm.
always be better. In school we've always taught to be better
Mhm.
than the kid next to us, run faster in the race, pehle aao,
Mm.
right, and all those kind of things. But I
Correct.
think the world doesn't value better. I
Mm.
think the world values different,
Mm.
right? So I don't just go and create a better Google, right? I have to create something different. Or,
Correct.
I don't go and create a better Amazon that my deliveries are faster, or I'm cheaper. I create something
Mm.
different,
Mm.
right? I go and create a Misho, for example, which is addressing a segment of blue collar,
Mm.
of the blue collar, whereas, Amazon is more white collar and upper white collar. So I create something very different. I create it like a social network, where these women are going ahead and selling the products. So I
Mm.
think the one big mistake that I think founders make is they try to do things which are better, and this is unfortunately because of our training, right? And I think the other thing that founders don't appreciate the value of is doing hard things,
Mm.
right? So doing hard things helps you build a moat. If you've done something hard, so like look at Swiggy. The reason Swiggy won the game was that till then all these companies were just aggregators of restaurants.
Fascinating. One more question from startup
Sure.
before I come to your book. You know, as a person who invests money in companies to scale up, a question that is often asked is at what stage should a startup start to scale up?
Oh, I think as soon as you get a good feeling about your, I think as soon as you get a good feeling about your product,
Mm-hmm.
right? So put your product out there, get feedback, from a few friends, families, potential customers. I would say, those first 100 customers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And once you start getting a feeling, you say, boss, this is going to work. Yeah, I'm getting great feedback on the product,
Mm.
right? This is a differentiated product. The margin is good. I think just go for it at that point.
Okay. Okay. So, Rehan, let's now talk
Yeah.
about your book, which is Make Your Own Luck. Um, Tell me about this book.
So the book, I got together for the book, with a gentleman called Bob Miglani,
Mm-hmm.
who's based in the US, and Bob had written a few bestsellers prior to that, and he was a very senior executive in Pfizer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the origin of the book was, I was talking to him about the success at Ola, and he said, "Wow, man, you really got lucky in
Mm-hmm.
life, right?" And I know he asked me, how did that happen? I said, man, I just got lucky. We invested in this company and boom, it became so big, right? And then he pinged me back. He was in India, then he went back to New Jersey, and he pinged me a few weeks later. He said, Rehan, that's not just luck, right? I mean, you probably did a bunch of things,
Mm-hmm.
and what you just attribute to luck
Mm.
is not luck, And he said, there are so many people in the world who think that they are not lucky and others are lucky,
Mm.
right? He said, what we must do is, I think we should compile a book about explaining that it is not luck, it is not, goddess luck that creates success. Maybe that's 5%, but 95% of what we do is a result of thoughtful choices that we make,
Well said.
right?
Mm.
And so the idea of that book is to put that out there, to inspire not just startup founders, but people in careers,
Mhm.
and anyone for that matter, right? With this idea that luck is a result of conscious, deliberate, smart choices
Right.
that you make, and is not just, because God likes you or doesn't like you,
Correct. Well
right?
said. Well said. Well said. So I'm going to now move to the last segment of our conversation. Some questions for you personally.
Sure, sure.
Rehan, for someone who was a techie, started a tech fund, has some amazing successes under your belt, what would you say are three key
Hmm.
milestones in your life or your career?
Well, I think the three key was, one was the decision to become a founder. I was first generation in my family
Mm-hmm.
to do so. This was, back in 1992. It was not cool to become a founder back then.
Absolutely.
Now it's cool, right? I mean, girls want to marry you if you're a founder. By then, and then those days, people ran away from you,
Yep.
right? If you're a founder, they were like, "Acha, iske paas job nahi hai,"
Uh,
right? So one was that,
mm,
and I think it was the absolute right decision because it's my calling. So I never worked for anybody. I became a founder straight out of college. My parents were supportive, which was very helpful.
mm,
Um, I think the second one was the whole shift to becoming a tech founder.
mm,
From just becoming a regular founder, getting into tech wholeheartedly.
mhm,
I had not come from an engineering background, though I had learned how to code, etc.
mhm.
As part of if you remember back then, computers, everybody had the black screen, right? There was no
Correct.
Windows, so
Mm,
you had to learn some coding, right,
yeah.
to operate those machines.
Mm,
So I think becoming a tech founder back in 2000, right, 20 years ago, super early. I think that was a momentous decision. Third is the decision to turn investor,
okay.
right? And to help accelerate what is happening in the country, both through channeling money. You see, when I was a founder, it was very hard to raise money.
Mm,
There was nobody to raise money from,
mm,
right? And to accelerate what is happening, and to be able to provide that mentorship to companies, right? Young startups. So I think these were the three, I would say, major key milestones in my career.
incredible. And when you now look at your role as an investor and working with 60 different
Uh-huh.
companies, as you just said, what are some of the core values you
Mm.
believe in?
Yeah, uh, I think one of the things which I learned, and has just become a very important value for me, is you have to take people along with you
Mm,
in life,
mm,
right? You can't just build for yourself, right? It has to be a win-win situation. You have to take people along. It has to be good for them
mm,
in whatever you're doing, right? So that's very important.
mm.
Uh, I think the other thing is to be ultra transparent, no matter what,
Correct.
right? Because if you are ultra transparent, it builds trust. I mean, it may have certain short-term negative issues, but over time, it builds your trust. It builds trust and credibility in you as a person,
Mhm,
and that is very, very important for your brand,
mm.
right? And you also feel good about it, that you don't have to play games, so your mind is not occupied. There's a whole section in your mind which is freed up from playing games, right?
Mm,
You just tell it as it is. And I think the third is, and this wasn't always true of me, and something I learned along the way is you have to think big,
mm.
right? Because big is inspirational, right? Big is what it's takes people along. People want to be part of a big story. Big makes you have fun, and
Interesting.
so these are three
Very,
values
very
that I
interesting.
sort
And
of
a
picked
follow-up
up
question.
along my journey.
Fantastic. And a follow-up question for you, Rehan, is that from where you stand today, what does
Hmm.
success mean to Rehan?
So I think it's a great question, and yeah, I think success to me, and I think this may be a weird one,
Hmm.
because success to me means that you're able to, from a professional standpoint, you are able to institutionalize what you're doing so that it then runs by itself,
Hmm.
right? So then you have really created. I think that is a successful piece of work that you have done.
Okay.
Then that you've created this box that can then run by itself.
Hmm.
I think that to me is success.
Very interesting. So I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is that who or what inspires you to keep doing so many different things?
I think thinking big,
Okay. Okay.
right? Thinking big is very inspirational about what can be done, what the possibilities are out there.
Hmm.
Thinking big means you're obviously creating something new, better, disruptive in the world.
Hmm.
So that's very inspirational.
Wonderful. And my last question, and we did speak a little bit about it a few minutes ago,
Mhm.
and this question is on failure. And I've often said that parents in Asia or India don't teach children it's okay to fail. It's we're always
Right.
told come first, head of the line, etc., and yet we make
Mm.
mistakes.
Right.
My question to you, Rehan, is what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
I think the two, one which I touched upon already. One was not thinking big enough early enough,
Hmm.
right? Because you don't have the confidence. You believe you're not good enough. I mean, we all have these kind of issues, right? For whatever reason, you believe that you are not the person to create that big thing, or
Correct.
part of, or be part of that big movement.
Hmm.
That is for people who have a more
Hmm.
hallowed birth. So I think getting over that was a big one, right? Getting over that failure or that mistake or that lack of belief, I think was a big one. And I think the second big one for me was that the most important thing is not skill, is not performance, but our relationships,
Hmm.
right? Relationships are more important than skill and ability and delivery and performance. And I always wasn't like that. I used to believe that, hey, if I did a great job and I wasn't good at my relationships,
Hmm.
it was fine, right? But I'm doing a good job. Everybody should appreciate me and like me. But
Hmm.
that's not true. Relationships are more important, and sometimes you have to step back and give the relationship more value than anything else you're doing, because we spoke about earlier, it's people, 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 people. You can't do anything in this world by yourself.
Correct, correct. Well said. Rehan, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I mean, I think the journey that you've taken me on of Orios and all your philosophies has been so fascinating. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.